Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Hello and welcome to Grilling JR. This is Paul Bromwell, and I'm joined by the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. JR, how are you today?
I'm good. Feeling really good. Conrad's busy. He's getting busier than a fruit merchant. I said that before. I don't know if anybody understands the nature or the meaning of that cliche, but back in Oklahoma, these guys would gather up fresh vegetables, fruits and vegetables. They'd go to these high traffic areas, which would be like the intersection of the highway. And they would sit their little pickup truck and have their bed open with all their vegetables. But if the business is slow, they had to move to another location. And so if it all depended on traffic. So when you say you're busier than a fruit merchant, meaning that's very busy because you're only going to be here a while, then you got to move on. So, but I'm good though. I feel good. I have at the end of this week, I've had 10 radiation treatments on my ankle. So then I've got 22 prescribed. So you can do the math on that deal. If everything goes according to Hoyle and Mother Nature cooperates, on the last Wednesday of December, when AEW is here in Jacksonville, I will have my last treatment that morning. And hopefully then that night I'll go back to work. That's the plan. That's if I was writing a storyline, I would write that. But for me, it's a matter of your health and your mortality and all those things. So it's got a lot of things to figure out and unpack, as Conrad would say. Let's keep it moving here. I've done a lot to unpack. So anyways, Connie. So, but anyway, I'm feeling pretty good. You know, I think the biggest issue I have to deal with is just the mental aspect of this business, because sometimes you allow yourself, or I allow myself to find that I'm in a place where I'm wondering what happens to me if the radiation doesn't work. And I don't have those thoughts very long. I just don't think that that'll ever be a case. I think I feel very positive that I'm going to be out of this mess in a few weeks. And then from going forward, I'll do what I should have been doing all along. I'll pay attention and go, you know, it doesn't hurt us. All of us should go see a dermatologist about once a year. Seriously. Because a lot of those things can be nipped in the bud very quickly. You know, these blemishes are actually killers. And so, like I said, I had the two on my back. I didn't even know I had until I went to the dermatologist to check on my ankle. He said, "We got a problem back here." Oh, good. I'm sure happy to hear that. And sure enough, it was 2 spots there that he had to cut out. And this one on my shoulder still got the stitches. So, but they're dissolvable. The medicine's pretty cool. Dissolvable stitches. So I don't have to go back and screw with that. So, but you know, you just, here's the deal. We all get hands dealt to us in life. And some of those hands are winners. Some of them are, you know, you get to drag the pot. And some of them you just got to play out and hope you don't go broke. and be conservative and be smart. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, which is a different ballgame for me, to be conservative and smart. So but that's kind of where we are. But everything else is good, man. We got to. I really thank all the fans for their support. You know, it's overwhelming on social media. I have some buddies that are just kind of getting to the Twitter thing, and they started following me, and they text me, "God damn, I didn't know you're that popular. When did that happen?" I don't. It's a phase. Don't worry about it. You know. So, but anyway, it's all going to be good, and I'm very positive and thankful again for all the support. It means a lot, quite frankly. So, you know, then my team got a new football coach, Coach Venables, from the defensive coordinator at Clemson, who's an old friend of mine. He was at OU from 99 to about over 10 or 11 years. All 4 of his kids were born in Norman. When I had my barbecue restaurant, they were regulars. And he's a hell of a guy. He's got great DNA. He knows how it is to win a national championship with OU and Clemson. And he knows how it is to prepare and play SEC schools.
That's the key.
And Lord knows that that's going to be here sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
So you better be ready, because SEC is the big boys. And you got to have a different mindset, and personnel's got to be big and physical. And there's just things you got to have. You got to figure out how to beat Alabama. And all due respect to Connie, my God, those cheeks. I wonder if Conrad's got to buy a separate seat for those cheeks when he goes to the Alabama game.
I don't know, but man, they did it again this past weekend.
I know.
Beating Georgia.
As long as Saban's breathing and they continue to recruit like they do, they give him the players to put that team together, he's going to be hard to handle, man. He's just so brilliant as a coach. You know, I've had my favorite coaches. But as far as from afar and not knowing the guy, just watching his game and how he prepares, he's pretty phenomenal. And I'm sure, and some people won't like hearing that, but because he's very polarizing.
Yeah,
he's like John Cena used to be. You know, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You know, you win, and the other side hates you. You lose, and your side hates you, or whatever. He just doesn't lose very much. So anyway, so the football's good. My cancer treatment is going to keep me from probably going to the, I'll just say that to humor myself. I am not going to the bowl game. It's in San Antonio. We really got shafted on all the rankings and the bowl stuff. But I think we might have been an overrated team too, quite honestly. A friend of mine told me that his dad told him that we're actually a 4-5 team with a 10-1 record.
Wow. And
he may be right. I thought we were very overrated, but we still love it. That's part of the soap opera. It's like this whole texture of wrestling. You get hooked in a storyline if you're lucky, and the promoter's lucky, and the writers are lucky, talent's lucky, and all these stars align, and all of a sudden you can run with your piece of business. It's good stuff. So it's good. You know, when Conrad told me we're going to do a show with Michael Cole's topic.
That's right.
I wasn't really sure what he was looking for. Not that it would matter, without sounding defiant and overbearing. I mean, he lets me do what I want to do anyway. And that's what's the brilliance of our relationship, is that I can communicate freely. And I don't get directed into a position that I would not have normally traveled. Conrad just lets things flow, and that's the beautiful part of why this Grilling JR's worked. You know, and it's worked well every week. Got a very loyal audience, and we certainly work hard to not disappoint them. When he told me about the Michael Cole idea, I'm thinking, I bet Conrad's looking for some dirt. Connie loves the dirt. And I'm thinking, when I started thinking about the topic, I don't have any animosity or anger or angst about regarding Michael Cole whatsoever. But I got stories and I got experiences, and we'll share all those things. And then maybe on the other side, some that are listening and watching what we're doing will look at him a little differently and maybe more objectively.
Yeah, I think that's the point, JR, and that's okay if you don't have dirt, but I think everybody wants to hear this and hear your perspective and your stories and hear that from your mouth. So
yeah,
this will be good.
I'm looking forward to doing the show, and Michael's birthday was yesterday.
That's right. When this drops, his 53rd birthday will have been on the 8th of this month. So happy birthday, Michael.
That's and just in all transparency, we're recording the show on Monday afternoon.
That's right.
And it's dropping, well, ad-free will have it in a few hours, it seems like. And then it'll be dropping to the world on Thursday mornings as usual. But I'm anxious to discuss him a little bit. I think he got a bad rap, and he's been a soldier there, which we'll talk about. I don't kill my pitch, but he does a good job. So anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, I had an unexpected guest drop.
That's where I was going to go, JR. Before we jump into this, talk about who dropped in on you today before this recording.
Well, it wasn't Vince McMahon. Mick Foley. Mick texted me earlier today, or I don't know if he texted me. Whatever was the cheapest thing he could do to communicate with me, he did. I was texting me or direct messaging me or filling my DMs up or whatever. But I didn't realize he was working on Saturday night, I guess Saturday, for Billy Corgan at the NWA show, whatever it was.
That's right. Hard Times too. You're right. You're right.
And
is that Mick Foley again? Is he popping in again?
No, somebody else from from my home area code probably wanted me to do an interview about the football coaching situation, which normally I would, but right now I'm doing something even more fun. Mick, then he drove. Mick lives an hour south of me here, and I didn't realize that. And so he said, "I've been wanting to come by and see you." He said, "I feel guilty," and he said, so he drove from Atlanta. He drove this trip, so he drove from Atlanta going to his home, and he passed right through Jacksonville. So he knocks on the door, and there he is, bigger than life. And I mean bigger than life. He's got to be 330 if he's an ounce. God bless him. I love him. I said, Mick, we talked about the booking and the work life after you're in a company. And he takes all these bookings and, he'll drive a zillion miles.
Yeah.
I tell a story one time that he played a little state fair barn on the fairgrounds in Oklahoma City, did his show, and he invited Jan and I to come watch the show, which we were very happy for the invitation and gladly accepted. So we get there, we park in the back because that's where the boys park. And so we parked in the back, and there was a little bitty white car sitting there. And I looked inside the car, and it was just, there was Whataburger wrappers everywhere. Sacks, hamburger wrappers, big drinks, big milkshakes would fit in. And I said, well, there's Mick's car. Well, how do you know? I said, because look at all this Whataburger stuff. So we get in there, and we hug, and I said, Mick, is that your white car right there? Yeah. So I looked at Jan. She just kind of grinned like, "That's you know way more than you need to know about Mick Foley's dietary strategies." So anyway, he came by and we had a great visit, and I love the guy. He's so grateful that I was able to help him back in the day.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I was in a position to help him. So he never disappointed, never failed. He always played well in every big game he was in. And so, we talk about football and all these guys delivering on the big stage. Mick's always delivered. And so, but you can tell I think he's got a new hip, he's got a new knee or something. Hell, they're reassembling him. But all those years of those crazy fucking bumps, he's paying for it now.
Well, that was nice of him to stop by and try to cheer you up, JR, with everything you have going on. The last time I know Mick tried to cheer somebody up and was in the hospital, and he pulled out a sock puppet. He didn't try to do that with you today. He didn't bring Mr. Sacco along, did he?
Mr. Sacco was not here.
Okay.
He was more than welcome, but he wasn't here. And Mr. Sacco. Isn't it funny how the simplest things sometimes just get over because of the individuals involved in the bit? McMahon, Austin, and Foley. You can write anything. It's not going to suck. It may not be as good as Mr. Sacco, but it's not going to suck. And that's why when people say the cream always rises, that statement kind of confirms that illustration rather, that you get the right ingredients. That's not saying that you can't have a stinker, but you lessen your odds of having a stinker if you get higher level talents, exercising your game plan. Hey, folks, it's time to take your podcast game to the next level. And you certainly want to get your almighty push. My God, we have to have a push, right? We'll get that over to adfreeshows.com. Now, I'm telling you, if you're a fan of Grilling JR, adfreeshows.com has the entire episode library, and it's got no ads. 0 ads, zilch, none. Ad-free and on video starting at just $9. Did you hear what I said? $9. You spend more than that at Starbucks, for God's sakes. 2 mornings. If that's not all, folks, we got tons of bonus content, including my after-hours roundtable, where drinking was involved with Eric and Tony. You simply will not find a better value in all of wrestling. Hey, look, don't make me go red ass, because by God, you know I will. Hurry over to adfreeshows.com right now and sign up. And I thank you.
A man in his tube sock, and wow, how that took off. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So anyway, he's doing good. He seems to be happy, and he's got that big family, and they're unique. It's like old Mick, the patriarch is a unique man, and he's just he'll always be one of my all-time favorites, just as a human being. He does so many things to help people in need, wrestlers that need, GoFundMe stuff.
Yes.
And he sells a shirt off his back at every show, and donates that. He's just a good human being that you wonder, well, when is this gig going to be up? Because nobody can be that nice. Yes, they can. We all can. It's a commitment, and Mick is committed to being a good guy. And he was raised by had good moms and a good mom and dad.
Well, JR, you were huge, influential on him even getting on with the WWF back in the day, as far as him coming on and signing. So I know you are important to him, as you are to so many of us. I'm thrilled to hear that your treatment is going well so far. Yep. And I'm excited to hear about that dream scenario of what you're talking about, of potentially the last treatment and then showing up that night on Dynamite.
Just worked out
man.
that way.
That would be unbelievable.
Just worked out that way. And let's just hope, knock on wood, that the plan stays intact. That's the game plan.
There we go.
And it'll be jacked to get to drive over to the stadium and at Daly's place and do our thing. And that's kind of, we've gotten the habit of doing that for a long time, and which is why I'm living here. Not that I regret being on the beach. It's not a bad deal. So Mick says, so you got to get up every day and look at that, huh? So anyway, it was a great visit.
Good.
I just saw it. If you go to Mick Foley's Twitter page, Twitter, at Real Mick Foley, he's got a nice picture of he and I on my balcony with a nice view of the beach and the ocean.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Awesome.
So anyway, Michael Cole is our
Let's
topic
do it.
today.
Let's do
Go.
Michael Cole. We're going to talk about an old colleague of yours. It is Michael Cole, and I know Conrad mentioned it last week when you were giving your medical update that Michael sometimes gets a bad rap when it comes to you. So hopefully we can clear some of that up today. You already said, hey, I don't know what we're trying to get out of this, but we just want to hear from you, JR. We want to hear your stories, your thoughts about Michael Cole. And so let's start at the beginning. Sean Coulthard, born December 8th, 1968, as JR said, just celebrated 53 years. And the story goes that Cole was recommended to the WWF by a fellow broadcaster, Todd Pettengill. So there's a name we all remember.
Yep.
And he started doing voiceover work for the WWF and hosted Livewire occasionally. When do you, JR, remember hearing about Cole and first meeting him?
Well, you know, Todd Pettengill was a friend. They worked in the news business together, radio news. And Cole had been around in the radio business for quite some time. And he made friends over the years with Todd, who was working for WWF part-time. It's significant part-time work, doing real well. Cole came in to give Pettengill some relief on voicing over some packages and short snippets and scripted things where he could come in. We're going to do this package. Here are the lines you need to read. And he would go into the audio booth, put the cans on like these, and then read his copy, get a check, go home. But he was always on time, and he was very easy to work with. And in essence, he got over in the studio. Never any trouble. And if he made a suggestion, it was always a good one. So he earned his stripes there early on by hard work and being reliable. Here's that key word again, reliability. Michael Cole's very reliable. So that's what he was doing there at first. Because he was rushed into play-by-play a little before he was ready, as he would probably admit. But that was the deal. He was coming in for just like contract labor.
Mm.
So he'd come in maybe one day a week, maybe 2 days a week for a couple of hours, read his copy, read his scripts, and hit the road.
Well, his first appearance on TV, JR, would be June 30th, 1997. And he's the backstage interviewer for a Legion of Doom interview. Did you know at the time that he was being groomed to be a play-by-play guy? Or?
Well, not that time. At that time, I didn't specifically know it, but it made common sense. We needed depth. And as has been proven over the years, sometimes Vince is hard to please. So nobody there was really on safe turf as a broadcaster. And Michael was young, and he had a good look. He was the right size to be an interviewer because he's, probably 5'9", something like that. So that was a safe number to do interviews. He handled the mic well spoken. But I never thought at that time that he would evolve to it, but it didn't surprise me, and it makes all the sense in the world. And so then when I got sick early on there, I think maybe the first bout of Bell's palsy, I'm not sure. I'll think about it here in a second. He got shoved out there to work with Lawler at ringside on Live Raw, and that's a tough down deal to be in.
JR, were you his mentor when he first started, like right out of the gate? Did you mentor him at all?
Yeah, I did. I'll say as a mentor because I helped him with his work. I helped him with mechanics. I helped him with fundamentals. I helped him with phraseologies. I gave him things to not say. I used to kid him about, the old football analogy is that our guys are really fat, but boy, they are slow.
Yeah.
Who got over right there? Nobody. So, and he got it. He's a smart guy. He had a good head for the business, but he was fun to interact with in that era because he was a sponge for information. He wanted to get better, and his ego was not so out of touch and inflated that was going to affect him. Somebody telling him how to do their job. All you do is just give them some direction, and then it's up to the talent that you're directing to utilize what they're hearing.
Was there anything right out of the gate, JR, that stuck out to you in terms of strengths and weaknesses with his play-by-play or his interview skills? Anything that sticks out to you?
He was always prepared, and he writes notes that are minuscule. I couldn't see him. I couldn't copy his homework if my life depended on it, so to speak. But he was always well prepared. Always had some notes. Always had some information there that he could utilize. Pull it out, use it pretty much any time. But the preparedness I thought was great. I'm not saying anything, you know, his voice needed to continue to be cultivated. But I thought he was a great student of trying to learn how to become a good storyteller as a broadcaster in pro wrestling.
Did you know, and when I think about Michael Cole, I've not really heard too much about his wrestling fandom. Was he a wrestling fan coming into this business at all? Were you aware of that at all? Or
I think he was a fan of the WWF.
Okay.
I think because he grew up in Jersey. Michael grew up in Jersey as best he may have grown up elsewhere in that northeastern area, but he was in WWF land. And, you know, I've heard him talk about guys he was fans of, things like that, but he seemed to be a fan of it. You know, you can't be embarrassed to be in the wrestling business and be in the wrestling business. It doesn't work. And I've been lucky. I've never had to work with anybody that's really seemed embarrassed about doing it. But nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I want to get your opinion on this. If you're starting out in broadcasting school, I would think that you'd have to be a fan of wrestling if you're going to do it well, right? I mean, isn't that
you got to prepare? It's like anything. It's like selling. It's like anything, teaching. You have to have product knowledge, Paul.
Yes, sir.
You have to have product knowledge. If you're selling cars, you're selling groceries, you're selling hamburgers, whatever, you got to have
mortgages.
Yeah, mortgages, absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah,
and that's and that you got to have product knowledge. He worked very diligently to learn more about the business, and he's being a smart guy and paying attention and checking his ego at the door. Really advanced his story in a quicker way. And then me getting sick opened the door for him to get out there and show everybody what he's got.
In those days, JR, would he report to you as you would be the lead announcer? What would that structure look like in terms of oversight for Michael?
Well, I gave him advice. Reporting to me probably might be a little stringent a term.
Okay.
I produced him a lot. I was in his headset a lot. And Taz and I were just talking about that the other day before I left my post a few weeks ago, that he'd like for me to produce him and Cole. But I didn't overtalk it. I gave him sound bites. Then I had things that were more meaty or more significant. They got it during a commercial break, or when they could actually hear it and absorb it. So I produced differently than Vince did. In other words, I was not nearly as aggressive in how my tone and inflection to what they heard in their ear. I didn't want them to hear panic or anger. I don't need that, and the broadcast doesn't need that. So you got to, fight that off. That's what Mick Foley here earlier today, as we mentioned, he couldn't handle that aspect of it. Just bothered him so much.
Sure.
The stress of being produced, hammering, boom, boom. And same thing for Taz. Taz had enough. And so some people handle it better than others. It's just their own personality and their own mental makeup. And for some reason, I said this before, one of the reasons that I survived working with Vince for so many years and profitably and being productive and all that good stuff is because I was raised by a guy that was just like him.
Mm.
My dad told me he loved me once in my life. I know that he did. I know he went to all my ball games. I know that, he was a big fan of what I did in school. He was just a little awkward and socially unsure of how he should conduct himself as the father of an only son. So he didn't share those feelings with me a lot, even though I knew it, so I could compensate. I knew it was there. But he was tough, man. Tough love. You kidding me? Jeez. So, but then Cowboy, what are you going to say there?
Yeah.
Tough as hell. He was a man's man, and he's going to tell you how as they say in Oklahoma, how the cow ate the cabbage. And, but so then you go to work, then you go to Atlanta, and one of the first guys I worked for in Atlanta is Ole. Okay, so here I am. I'm just matriculating right along, as Hank Stram would say. And I'm working from, my dad's there. Then then Cowboy, then Ole, then Vince.
Strong personalities.
Oh yeah. So by the time Vince got his hands on me, he did things and say things that would upset me because I felt like they were counterproductive. And there's no sense of breaking your play-by-play guy down in the middle of a live show. It's just illogical. And of course, you can always say, well, JR, you just got to toughen up. You're making a lot of this, toughen up. Hey, fuck yourself. Sit out there and you do it. You toughen up. You have no net. You're on national, global television. And it's all ad libs, all extemporaneous. And while you're being bombarded oftentimes with negatives and cursing, you're supposed to maintain this level of professionalism and tell these great stories as if nobody was in your headset. So it didn't affect me as much as some guys, but for a lot of guys, it was a deal breaker, and unfortunately.
Can't imagine, JR, the pressure of someone talking to you. Now, would it happen while you're trying to talk? Are they feeding you words as you're trying to talk at the same time?
Of course. So you're hearing them, you're hearing yourself, you're hearing the ambient noise. Then if your partner's got something to say, you gotta factor all that in. It's a bad system. It's not poor JR. JR got paid a lot of money from Vince McMahon. Knock on wood. I'm very blessed. But I earned every frigging dime. It's
chaos in that time, in that place, in those moments. It can be chaos, it sounds like.
Yep. And that's why now, when I go back to working for Tony Khan, it's a whole. I'm counting down the days.
Right.
I enjoy being around the AEW people. I enjoy being around that youth. I enjoy being able to add a boy sometimes or add a girl somebody sometimes because it means more to them because they perceive, oh, JR's been around a long time and he's signed a lot of really cool talent that's done well. So maybe I should listen to him a little bit. And I don't try to change their life or change their religion, but some things need to be addressed. And it's all for their own good. In other words, what do you do on your days off? You have a plan. You go home, hit the couch, chill, work on your tan by, tanning bed. Is that your big, this, and I'm blunt, sometimes too blunt. I'll admit that, but they need to hear when they're screwing up and tell them why they're screwing up and tell them here's how you solve that problem. It's just not, you're an idiot, stop doing that, move on. Here's what you're doing, and here's what the perception is. Here's what you should consider as a change.
Well, it sounds like JR, he got a little bit of you in his ear from time to time, which I'm sure was a welcome break for Michael. His first time on commentary that we could find in our research was a Shotgun Show on August 9th, 1997 with Jim Cornette. That's a hell of a way to debut as a play-by-play guy, isn't it? With old Corny, huh?
Yeah. Well, hey, Cornette's a hell of a broadcaster. Everybody judges Cornette on what they hear on his podcast and things now, and the scathing things he will discuss or deliver to you. They have to understand he's got to get hits. He's got a business to run. And I don't have any issues at all by what he says because it's his opinion. And he has the right to that. Just like you have the right to your opinion, and I have my right to my opinion, on any given topic. But they actually putting Michael Cole with Jim Cornette was good for Michael Cole because he didn't have to fill anything because he's got one of the great talkers of all time sitting beside him.
Well, Cole begins to take part of a three-man booth on Raw in late '97 with you and Kevin Kelly. We know you're in a three-man booth now, but JR, how did you feel about it back then, the three-man booth?
It was a little bit awkward at times because you had three guys who were essentially play-by-play guys trying to do this a different role, fill a different void. So it was a little awkward at times, but I was there to hopefully positively influence two young announcers who are both potential play-by-play guys, and then obviously potentially would replace me because I was the older dude. And I don't have a problem with that. That's life, man. That's just attrition. That's what it is. That's competition. If you're afraid to compete, don't do this. So anyway, the three-man team was, I understood why they did it. I didn't hate it, but it was a little awkward at times, simply because you have to have a different ear and a different pulse when you are not the play-by-play guy. You got to fill in and out, fill. And the play-by-play guy always is the first person to start the dance. He should always welcome you back from the break. He should always take you to the break. There's structure that should be initiated. And it's just hard when three guys are trying to do the same job instinctively.
JR, at that point, did you already feel that Cole was set to be your replacement or understudy at that point? Nah?
Shit. I thought I was invincible. Yeah. But if it was, you know, hey, he does good. It's up to me to do better and continue to do my job well. But, you know, Paul, that's just living in fear.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would I think? Why would I want to sit there in my? I don't know. This kid's getting pretty good. He may replace me someday. Okay, first of all, I can't control that. And if I'm going to be so naive and so pro wrestling dumb that I'm going to get all up in arms about something I cannot control, it's almost frigging embarrassing. So no, I didn't think that. I just tried to help him. And he'd ask me questions, and, you know, we got along great. So I have a lot of respect for Michael, especially as a husband and a father. And his wife had some health issues, and he's always been right there, steadfast. And with that crazy job he's got and the hours he keeps now, because he's now in charge of all the announcers. I think he does their contracts and scheduling and all those things. So good for him. And maybe some of my old administrative skills and my desire to do it rubbed off on him somewhere down the road. But he does a good job. He's really good at what he does, but we all know he can only take it so far. He can't make the major decision about I'm going to replace so and so and put somebody else on Raw without talking to Vince.
Sure. Well, he would do some stuff with DX. They're coming to Rise where they would harass him and give him wedgies, JR. It's tough to build someone to be the lead commentator, and they have things like that happening. They're getting the wedgies and all that treatment.
Your answer you're going to get every time about that stuff is that's the entertainment part of sports entertainment.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's not great for your credibility, but as a serious play-by-play guy, but nobody said that Vince was looking for serious play-by-play guys.
We always got to remember who's in charge at the end of the day. So
it's pretty. It makes a lot of sense in life and in the real world we all live in.
Right.
You know who butters your goddamn bread, and if you can't handle it, don't work there. I can't do that. My character wouldn't do that. Okay, then your character just the hell out. Come on. So yeah, I'm that's a little frustrating to me how that works, but the ego shit. Yeah. That's a good thing about Cole. He never had an ego problem, and guys in his position and put in the fast lane, eventually, it's hard not to have ego issues. I can tell you from experience, but I don't recall him ever being an issue egocentrically whatsoever. Level-headed. And if he wasn't right now, Paul, he'd be going crazy.
Yeah. Well, he's replacing the role with Jerry Lawler in mid-'98. What was it about Cole that didn't work during that time period? Or was it that just Lawler would be a better fit? I mean, I think we can all say you and Lawler were the home run team. Do you remember anything about that transition there?
Now, say that, what transition was it?
He would leave the booth and Lawler would step in mid-1998.
Oh, the three-man team.
Yeah.
That we had.
Cole moves his way out and Lawler steps in.
Well, what do you need to know about that? Look who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Hall of Famer, Jerry the King Lawler.
Well, first of all, Cole was going to be the second or third wheel in that three-man team at best. And that's not where they wanted him to be positioned as a backup, where he's walking on the sideline carrying his clipboard wearing a visor. Okay. But you're talking about Jerry Lawler here. And arguably, you know, one of the greatest to ever do that job, ever, in any generation, for any company. So I thought that was a no-brainer. it separated Cole from being in the shadows of everybody, where at some point in time he's going to get a more defined gig, and he's put Lawler back on television, which always works. Well, at least it did with he and I. We just had that natural chemistry that we were blessed to have. And but yeah, anyway, yeah, I think it's a smart move getting Michael out of that cluster and putting Lawler out there where he could be Lawler.
Well, JR, you mentioned it earlier. Cole would then step in for you after your bout with Bell's palsy in December of '98 and becomes the voice of Raw with you producing him. There's a famous clip in the movie Beyond the Mat where they're showing the footage of Royal Rumble 1999 match between Rock and Foley, where you're in the back essentially doing commentary in Cole's ear, and Cole is repeating what you're saying to the audience. Was there not a lot of trust in Cole in this position, and that's the setup that Vince wanted?
No, that was me.
Okay.
Had nothing to do with Vince. You're looking for shit here. You ain't going to find it on that one. But you're good effort. Conrad should be proud of you. You're trying to find some folks. He's working hard to get you guys some dirt. That's how I produced it.
Okay.
And sometimes it requires more than a sound bite. When you work with somebody long enough, you give them a 2 or 3 word sound bite, and that's good enough to get them back in the road, the lane you want to be in. Sometimes because of circumstances in the ring and the creative, where we are creatively, especially with 2 valued talents that we're in the ring, you want to make sure you don't let the guy, your guy you're producing, misstep. So then you give him a little bit more. But I'm not yelling and screaming at him. Say it, goddamn it, say it, you son of a bitch. You know, nothing. Right. But no, it was never anything. Well, JR, just produce this kid as best you can. Let's just get by it until you get back. Sure.
Okay. Why Cole over someone like Kevin Kelly, JR, in that spot, do you think? Why did they make the shift to him instead of Kevin?
You know, I don't know. Kevin does a great job with New Japan. And
he does.
Yeah, I think he just does terrific. That's a hard gig, man. It's a hard gig. And I remember in the very beginning, Kevin didn't get started off with such a good foot. And I think it was because there was some, and he could probably, if he watches this show, and I think he does watch our show. At least I hope he does. So he will now if I mention him.
It'll be tagged on social media.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think he came in and there was a little bit of a issue, and that may not be a good word, but a little bit of a discussion about how they were going to spell Kelly.
Huh.
And somehow or another, it got in the pipeline of conversation where it went back to Kevin Dunn to get a rulings because the studio didn't know how, they didn't know copyright stuff or, intellectual property. What's all this stuff?
Yeah.
What was
trademark, all that stuff.
Trademark, all that stuff. Yeah. So anyhow, Kevin Dunn had to intervene over how Kevin Kelly's last name was going to be spelled. And I don't know that Kevin Kelly ever really got out from under that thumb. But I always liked his work, and a lot of people there liked his work. But sometimes, he could be his own worst enemy, as I'm sure he would agree on these. We all were young, full of P and V, man. So he was just that. He could be a little bit. We want to say, hey, Kevin, chill, exhale. Don't live and die on all this bullshit. And so I think he was he made a mistake there.
Okay.
He should have let it go. Who gives a shit how your last name's spelled? Who cares? So and then Cole had that look. Cole was smaller. Kevin was probably 2 or 3 inches taller than Michael. I'm guessing. So they knew that Michael could do play-by-play, or he could do interviews, and he'd fit in physically. Kevin was a little bit larger for that role of interviewer. You didn't see me doing a lot of interviews. I did some big interviews, sit-downs, and things like that. But on the regular basis, no, it's not my thing. So that's how I would say that. But Kevin did a really good job. he just went afoul of the wrong people, it seemed like.
Well, according to The Observer, in a classic JR moment on March 8th, 1999, JR returned to Raw as part of a storyline alleging that McMahon fired him because of his condition, but that he would not go down quietly, and enlisted the services of Dr. Death Steve Williams as his personal enforcer. Ross confronted his replacement, Michael Cole, in the ring. Despite Cole's insistent that he was not trying to steal Ross's job, Ross kicked Cole in the crotch and attempted to return to the announce table, though Terry Taylor ended up commentating for the rest of the night. Do you think at this time they were already forces working to pit you against each other, or was this just a storyline, JR?
Oh, it was a story. I don't think the forces were there at all. I think it was an angle. And I remember in that scene, Terry Taylor was standing up, bowing up to me, and I said, "What are you going to do? Peck me to death?" Red Rooster.
Love it.
Reference. But Vince wanted me to turn me heel. He wanted to turn me heel. There you go.
Yeah.
So, and I never knew why. It was never explained to me, and it never worked. If it had worked and been good for the TV show, and there had been a boost in areas of importance, I'm all for it. But I never thought it was going to achieve shit, and it didn't.
JR, was that the first crotch shot that you attempted in wrestling to someone that you can recall? I mean, we're getting into the important stuff here on this show.
It might have been.
Okay.
If it wasn't, it was one of the first ones. There's no practice. There's no practice rounds.
That's right.
Get some young, hey, buddy, come over here to stand right there. I kick you in the balls a couple of times. Just so
we're just practicing here.
Yeah. But no.
Oh, whoops.
No, it was you aim and you try to get in the general vicinity where you need to be and apologize later.
But I don't remember you being involved in any kind of physical altercation in wrestling prior to this deal.
Well, you're probably, there's probably a few times, but I can't, nothing specific.
Yeah.
I can think of, but it wasn't my thing, Paul. I didn't even want to do it.
I know you didn't. You've said it before. Yeah.
Give the TV time to the talent who are going to sell tickets and pay-per-views and merchandise, not to a chubby announcer, because he's like I was a mannequin on this. Vince was doing
puppeteer.
The thing.
Yeah.
Puppeteer. Yeah. So yeah, no, I don't think there was any. The deal was, I guess to get JR over as a heel, but nobody bought it. They liked JR better than they liked Michael Cole at that time.
That's right.
And it put him in a tough situation because it stagnated his growth and influenced the direction and the perception that the audience was going to have with him. They believed my bullshit. You're trying to take my job. And they bought it, but the other way around. Instead of making Michael Cole the young, handsome heir to the throne, they made him come off as a prick.
Yeah.
And that's not fair, but that's how it worked out.
Well, we're at WrestleMania 15 that year, and this is kind of crazy. People still bring this up, JR. Cole does a live ad read for the QVC after show. Yes, that QVC, and talks about how they will have the new WWF World Champion on the show. Obviously, the main event is yet to take place, but he's always caught a lot of heat on the internet for exposing the ending, when in reality, he's just reading the script. Now, are you backstage at this time when this happens? Is this brought up at all? Do you remember anything about this?
I remember something about it, but it was a big snafu on the copy. He should have asked a question. That's where you get when you go too cooperative. Now, wait, when's this going to air?
Right.
I always ask, when does this air? And if somebody said, what's going to air before the show? Well, then you can't say this. Right. So anyway, yeah, I heard a little bit about it, but it was on that WrestleMania day. So everything gets pushed back. Right. At the end of the day, does it really do we give a shit? And because we have bigger fish to fry, and we did.
Well, you would come out and replace Cole in the main event. It's Austin Rock in Philadelphia, and it was at their request, by the way, and Cole finds himself demoted at this point. Did you talk to Michael about this at all? Does Vince? What does this look like?
He and I talked, on more than one occasion, and we both agreed that, look, this is how this place is managed. We're at the whim of a very unique man who has the ability to make us both a lot of money and give us notoriety, opportunity to build a reputation, to build our own brand, shall we say. And, but I said, the roles can turn in a heartbeat. And that, of course, you can fast forward that all the way to the draft in San Antonio. So it can turn on a dime. So in other words, I tried to explain to him, look, whatever's happened to you can happen to me just as easily. And vice versa. Whatever's happened to me can happen to you just as easily. We can't control it. So why worry about it? Seriously, you got to be concerned. I get that. You can't just block it out, but it can't become a dominant emotion in your being, because you'd be miserable because you're always looking over your shoulder, so to speak. So we chatted. He knew. And he knew I had nothing against him, and he me, nothing. So
it sounds like a normal conversation, but JR, do you think it made it weird though a little bit after that at all? Did it change the relationship? Still, do you think?
I don't. If it did, it changed it much.
Okay.
We had competition. The competition really came in announcing when Taz and Cole teamed up on Smackdown.
Gotcha.
Against Lawler and JR. And there's where it got a little bit more competitive. I always thought in a good-natured way. And, me saying shit like the A Show and things like that didn't help things. But no, I don't think it had a big landmark effect. But what it did to create a competition. And who's going to do a better job on the show. And so that I liked.
Well, JR Cole, he's not put back on regular commentary for Raw. It's you and King, and you guys hold that spot down for most of the Attitude Era. He's used for interview segments and other tasks. Is your relationships, Cole, happy at this point as it's going? Because we're about to get to SmackDown, but we're not there yet. You're holding it down on Raw once again.
Cole was a team player. And he understood my philosophy of not worrying about a pro wrestling issue that you can't solve. Don't worry about anything in life you can't solve. Just don't do it, man. And he understood that. But he was making a good living. He was having fun. He knew that it was just a matter of Vince waking up on a different side of the bed someday, and Cole's going to be sitting there, and I'm not. So we both understood that. And you just got to go to work and do your job and not worry about shit you can't control.
Well, Cole finally gets that promotion when SmackDown comes to air on UPN, and he's tabbed as the commentator for the show, as you said, JR. Is that a Vince or Kevin Dunn decision? And I guess you're feeling at this point Cole's got to be ready for that, right?
Well, the first episode of SmackDown, the announcers are Lawler and JR.
That's right.
And that's what it was going to be. But Vince had a bad night with me, and I had a bad night with him. And I was also the head of talent relations. I was booking the house shows. I was handling the payoffs. Now I'm doing 2 shows. I had no life. And I told Vince, I said, why don't Cole do this? And so they left Cole with Lawler, which Lawler loves because he loves to be on television. And not that others don't, including me. So Cole, starting week 2, was the guy. So I just think Vince is tired of hearing my voice. He hears me every Monday night for 2 hours live, screaming and raising hell and going crazy. And then the schedule, adding another show, I think that's what got Russo turned off, if I recall correctly, because he's writing more product and not getting paid for it, in his view. So, I had no heat with that deal. It was a relief to me not to be doing SmackDown. And over the years, I do SmackDown here, there, and yon. But, basically it was his deal, him and Taz or him and whomever. Him and Taz did a real good job. I say that.
Very good team. And to your point, you said it at the top of the show, JR. One of the things that stood out to you was Cole's reliability, and this speaks to it. He would be in that spot for 10 years and only missed 2 SmackDowns in 10 years.
It's awesome.
That's unbelievable.
So if you're an employer, that's huge. That's huge. Reliability. I said it here on the show many times. But JR, what's the number one trait you look for when you're recruiting somebody? Reliability. I don't care how dark their tan is or how many tattoos they have or how wet their hair is or whatever. Don't make a shit. But if I can't count on you to be at work on time and to give me everything you got, then we don't need to be doing business together, because neither of us are going to be happy. And the role I was in at that time, if I'm really unhappy, I'm going to go to the old man and say, this guy's he's not helping us. He's lazy and he's unmotivated, and I'm going to try one more time to get in his head. You want us to meet with him or whatever? And he said, no, why don't you just get rid of him? Well, that's kind of what I wanted to do.
The 2 SmackDowns that he didn't do, JR, in those 10 years were the debut episode that you did and the 9/11 episode in Houston. That is just, it's a hell of a run for Michael Cole.
It is. It is a hell of a run. And I'm sure he was a little miffed that he didn't do the 9/11 show, and neither did Taz. And if I had been them, I would be miffed as well, because of the importance of the broadcast, because that was a show that Heyman and I did. So I would be a little bit, my feathers would be ruffled without a question. And those guys got every right to be a little bit angry or disappointed, maybe is a better term. So, yeah, man, I'm so glad I wasn't married to SmackDown. I enjoy the show, and I enjoyed the show because I was there when they would tape them all, because I got that day job, take care of talent. And somebody's always got a boo-boo face about something. So you got to be there to do your work. And, but nonetheless, I got a break there. Cole, he did a phenomenal job. Michael Cole's the voice of SmackDown. Michael Cole's right now that Michael Cole's the voice of WWE.
That's right.
And he's earned that. Don't you think, aren't you offended? No. Why would I be offended? I had my run. He'll be a Hall of Fame guy too someday. Wouldn't it be ironic if he went in the Hall of Fame and he wanted me to induct him? You think that would go like a fart in church, wouldn't it?
I would love to be that fly on the wall for that conversation that he has with Vince when he asked him for it.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. It's never going to happen. But nonetheless, it's kind of a fun scenario to daydream about.
It'd be interesting to see who he would ask, though, right? Who would Michael Cole want to induct him? That's an interesting topic.
Oh, golly. Hard to say. Now, right now, he'd probably use a Pat.
He had special relationship with Taz, with JBL. Him and JBL were a long time.
JBL might be a more viable prospect to Taz because of the AEW deal.
That's right.
And I was just being bullshit. Hell,
you never know.
No, you never know. But nonetheless, I think he would have no problem finding somebody that Vince liked that could do the job. JBL may be the best idea I've heard on this topic.
There you go. All right, JR, here you go. Here's a question for you, and I know I'm going to maybe get pushed around a little bit here for trying to get some dirt, but do you think Michael was ever angling to get you out of your spot, or was Vince just the one doing it? Or do you think that, neither one was really up to that, but do you feel like one of them was trying to get you out of your role?
Well, Vince, I think Vince was pretty simple.
Yeah.
He wanted younger. He didn't want Southern. He didn't want chubby cheeks, my boy. So yeah, I think that was just, he wanted to change. And, he also underestimated my popularity.
Yes.
And, with that said, it sounds very egocentric to say something like that, but
no, I
think that was all proven in, over time. But in any event, I don't know, man. I don't think Cole had any, there's conspiracy theory or underhanded bullshit. That's just not him. It's just not him. And I don't know how much he could influence it anyway, to be quite honest with you, in all fairness to everybody involved. It was one guy's decision. We all keep looking for different places to go down the route. There is no other place to go. You're going to come to the same spot every time.
Buck stops with Vince.
That's it.
Well, let's talk about the infamous draft moment, JR, when you and Cole switched June 23rd, 2008. Do you think he knew ahead of time?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think, you know, I had a conversation with Kevin Dunn the night before at the bar there at the hotel in San Antonio. And I pulled him off to the side and I said, you know, can you tell me about my status tomorrow night on the draft? He said, are you crazy? You think we're going to break up Madden and Summerall? No way. No way. So, well, I'm glad to hear that. I sure didn't want that to happen. Well, I'm sure that he shared that conversation with Vince, just out of conversation. And when Vince heard that I was really hell-bent on staying on Raw with Lawler, well, this will be good. So that's when Vince made a decision to move me over. And he did it with well, I moved my son-in-law there too, talking about Triple H, obviously. So he made a big, he went from the #1 show to doing this. And of course, he wasn't on Smackdown long, you know, a while. The plan was for me to be there for TFN. And then, but it was not a good experience for me at all. You know, that's where, remember they tried to replace, they used Todd Grisham. I was Todd Grisham's partner. I was his sidekick.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not a real good sidekick sometimes, so I don't want to be. And they put Todd in a tough situation. Todd's a good kid, smart as hell. He's successful doing MMA and does a real good job. But he was young and enthusiastic, and he had been told, I think Lawler and I went in the Hall of Fame in 2007. And Todd told me on one of our car trips, he had been told that by that fall, he would be in the chair on Raw. So that was a game plan. So he didn't make the chair. He made SmackDown's chair. Cole got to go to Raw. And somewhere along the way, OJR was not included until they saw that maybe I could help Grisham, who they had great hopes in. They put me with him to kind of give him some stability and, you know, to help him if I could. Groom him a little bit if he, you know. So that's how that worked out. But again, it's the same old shit, man. You can't go freak out on stuff you can't control. Makes no sense. So that's kind of how I did freak out. I freaked out to Jan. I freaked out, you know, internally, which is horrible to internalize all this stuff. But I just knew somewhere down the road that it's going to be whatever the result's going to be is going to be the best for me at the end of the day. I believe that. And look how it's worked out. I couldn't be happier.
Well, Cole begins to have an edge around his commentary and effectively is turning himself heel, JR. Do you remember whose idea this was?
Well, I'm sure it wasn't Cole's idea.
Yeah.
Vince or whoever Vince's #1 rider was at that time.
Do you like the idea of a lead heel announcer?
No. The lead announcer has got to be someone that the audience trusts. He can't be an overwhelming character to where the character is more important than their validity, their honesty, their shooting straight within the storyline parameters, et cetera, et cetera. So, no, when Cole was the lead announcer and he was becoming a heel, I thought it was one of the more silliest positionings that we had ever done. Because now you got your guy you want everybody to trust this guy. If this guy's a heel and he's lying and he's exaggerating, and then he says, man, I'll tell you what, Triple H may be the toughest guy in all of WWE. Now, do I believe that as a broadcaster, or I think he's bullshitting me in his heel character? Does he really mean that? Whereas if he had been a babyface and that didn't have that tainted history of being a heel, shall we say, then all of a sudden he's not there's no issue. You believe him. When JR said Stone Cold was a BMF or whatever, because I was honest and people knew I had a relationship there, they believed it, and it got Steve over more because they were hearing the words that they wanted to hear from somebody that should have known and was willing to share those opinions.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. Blurred lines with wrestlers can be entertaining, but with commentators, it can be confusing.
Yeah, who do I believe?
Yeah.
Are you heel announcer now? Are you babyface announcer? Are you bullshitting me? Or are you shooting me straight? I don't know. I'm not sure where we are here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I felt like with that when Michael was in that role. They didn't do him any favors whatsoever. But here's the good news about that deal. To me, he endured it and survived it. Horrible creative for him, but he didn't say shit with a mouthful, as Granny would say. And he survived it. Now he's tenured, and he's been there for years and years. He's got a title, and he's making good money. I'm proud as hell of him.
Well, JR, we're going to move on with the storyline here because you're on Old School Raw. It's November 15th, 2010. You make an appearance with Cole and Lawler at the commentary desk, which leads to Cole insulting you throughout the match between Jack Swagger and Daniel Bryan. That's right. We call now Bryan Danielson. You hit him. You hit him with your hat at the end. This is the beginning to set up Cole and Lawler to give Lawler a WrestleMania match. Finally, we're going to get Lawler at WrestleMania. What do you remember of this night? The insults Michael sent your way, do you think they were all coming from Vince?
I don't know if they were all coming from Vince because Michael's smart enough to start putting the story together and could create some of his own content. But he did what he had to do. I mean, he needed to be rude to me and negative and all that good stuff, and be the big dog out there. But it because it was ostensibly created to get Lawler a match at WrestleMania. For Lawler to have his first match at WrestleMania, in all due respect, against Michael Cole, was ridiculous. You're telling me that one of the greatest workers of all time, who has done more for the business than just about anybody that you can name as far as a territory guy and, you know, all those other positive experiences, Hall of Fame guy, you know, he's a star. He should have had a match with somebody he could have had a wrestling match with. And he would have been the happiest guy in town. He was happy to have a match on WrestleMania. I don't know how deep his happiness went with the choice of opponents. So, and to Michael's credit, because I've been in his positions, he was nervous as a whore in church because he's on the stage. This is big stuff, right?
That's right. WrestleMania, baby. Yeah.
So anyway, Cole got a payday out of it, and Lawler got his match and got a payday out of it. So those are a couple of wins the way I look at it.
But you get inserted into this feud. Did you like that? They used you to be, you know, the driver, I guess, or part of the storyline to make it work.
Well, I didn't mind it. It helped Jerry and helped Michael. As I could help them further their WrestleMania thing. And, of course, then it gave me a shot at calling the match at WrestleMania. So I got some more paydays out of it. And, you know, I'm not an amateur. I'm a pro, so pros get paid. So by creating another opportunity to get another payday and get a WrestleMania payday out of it, you know, I'm okay.
Well, it's March 14th, 2011, and you return to confront Cole and challenge him to a match before being attacked by Swagger. What's the plan here, JR? Do you remember this storyline? What's going on with this one?
Well, they liked the interaction between Cole and I, and they saw the fans were buying it. So here's how we can further humiliate these two announcers by taking them completely out of their comfort zone and put them in the ring. And they wanted to get some heat on Swagger, and they thought I'd be a good guy to do that, which I didn't mind doing it. Look, when you're in there with him, you don't have a lot of choices. In other words, you're going to do what you need to do because you can't stop it. He's a beast. And even though I helped him get in the business, and he's a kid I mentor still to this very day, you know, he had an opportunity to get over, and he was very aggressive. And I went through it, and they're setting up a tag match.
Yeah,
that's that's all it was, to set up a tag match. So, but I didn't. Again, same reasons. Could you use somebody else? Could use the TV time more, but that's not how the creative went. Had nothing. Michael Cole, I'm sure, he didn't like doing them either. I blacked his eye, chipped his tooth in that little skirmish. Well, I'm not trained in this area. And the last thing Vince said to me when I went out there for one of these encounters was to lay your shit in, JR. Okay. Now, I didn't go out there with a premeditated thought, I'm going to try to hurt him. But when your adrenaline gets going and you don't know how to throw a working punch, sometimes those rounds go off, and there's little issues there. So
yeah, BMF, JR. There we go.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm untrained, and that's another thing. Why would you put two guys that are totally untrained, striking each other? I mean, really,
it's a recipe for disaster. Yeah,
it is, and it was pretty much a disaster.
Right. Well, you mentioned it earlier. You get the call, though. You're making the call, WrestleMania. You get the payday. And what did you think of the finish, though? It's the anonymous GM reversed the decision to give Cole the win by DQ over Lawler. And, I mean, it's silly, to your point. Jerry couldn't win his only Mania match?
It's weak. It's weak, Paul. Obviously, it was weak. I thought it was hurtful to Lawler, not on his character, just personally. I didn't think it was the right thing to do with Jerry, and I'm biased. So what? I can't change it anyway. So what?
Yeah.
But they were looking to get more out of the JR and Cole thing. Then they figure out a way. Well, we can maybe get Swagger in there. He's JR's kind of protege type deal, Oklahoma boys, and Lawler could help him, just like he helped Mark Henry and other guys that were green and young. So they thought they were fulfilling several needs, checking many boxes, and that's how I looked at it anyway.
You said that you didn't mind being part of the storyline, JR, but he was throwing some serious, and he being Cole, he's throwing some serious one-liners and insults your way. Was this something that he cleared with you? Did you talk about it at all? I mean, or is this just you're just hearing it like the rest of us?
I had no idea what he was going to say.
Okay.
And I really preferred that.
Okay.
Then if I'm pissed, I can react in an organic pissed off way, and it could be real as it can be within the guidelines of sports entertainment. So no, we didn't discuss. Okay, now you say this, and I'll say that, then I'll make a boo-boo face, and then none of that. There was no rehearsals. We just went out and did it, and apparently, at times it seemed like we were doing it too good because we kept getting invited back for more.
Yeah, so let's talk about what happens. The Raw after Mania, Cole squirts you with barbecue sauce, and this is all going to lead to you teaming with Lawler to go face-to-face with Cole and Swagger on 2 Raw episodes before a country whipping match at Extreme Rules. And I'm going to read what the Observer has to say here. It's Jack.
I'm sure it's very.
Oh, you're going to love this. Yeah. Jack Swagger and Michael Cole beat Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross in a country whipping match in 7 minutes, 1 second. Ross worked with a splint on his hand since he broke one of his fingers punching Cole on Raw.
I did.
And Cole had bruises around his left eye from a week earlier. Ross and Lawler whipped Swagger early. Cole came out covered from the shoulders down in bubble wrap. Lawler started whipping him, and he no-sold it because the bubble wrap protected him. Ross and Lawler continued to whip him, and he laughed at both of them. Lawler then decked Cole and pulled his bubble wrap off. Cole tagged out before getting destroyed. Swagger started whipping Lawler, but was trying to make it as light as possible to protect him. Swagger tied Lawler's left wrist to the ropes. Swagger put the boots to Lawler. Cole whipped Lawler a few times and then tagged out. Swagger was beating on Lawler until missing a Vader-style reverse splash. Cole tagged in and started whipping Lawler, who no-sold it. Lawler was about to get Cole when Swagger nailed him with the chop block. Swagger put the ankle lock on Lawler, but Ross made the save with 2 weak strap shots.
Well, yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah,
they were weak.
Weak ass strap shots. Lawler hit the DDT on Swagger and hot tag to Ross. Ross gets the hot tag. Ross whipped Swagger a few times and put Swagger in the ankle lock. Look at you, Mr. Angle here. That spot didn't make sense with Swagger selling, being in pain from an announcer.
Dave, none of it made sense. I'm sorry. None of it made sense, for God's sakes. You can't justify it for any reason. But go ahead. I'm enjoying this.
This is amazing. This is. Crowd reacted to it, but didn't seem to believe Swagger was in trouble. We know. Swagger tagged Cole. Lawler and Ross were beating on Cole as much as they could. Ross whipped him and put on the ankle lock. Ross used the strap for a low blow on Swagger and was whipping him with a strap. While this was going on, Cole schoolboyed Ross for the pin. Ross sold the loss more than anyone on the show sold their loss. He gave it 1 1/4 stars. So tell me about being in this match, losing. How happy were you to be in the ring, JR?
I was happy that it was over. Because you're just in a different world out there, and you're under a microscope. There's no nets. There's no redos. There's no stuntmen. There's no doubles. So I was just glad we got through it, to be honest with you. And I know it got 1.5 stars or 1/4 stars or whatever. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
It wasn't a negative star, so there you go.
Well, that's great. I can be thankful for that. I'll sleep better tonight knowing that. So, but anyway, it's just, when it was over, I was relieved as hell.
I'm sure.
I really was. And I did break my hand, and Cole's face got a pounding, and for no reason, because it was something we had to do, and it was booked that way. So, and when you get guys like he and I, we have no skills. So what am I going to do? Start applying holes? I applied an ankle lock. Wow. But other than that, nothing. I got nothing. So then you rely on kicking and punching, of which neither are you trained to do.
Yeah.
So apologize later. And that's what I did. Sorry about that. I remember I had to get tetanus shots, or I hit Cole, one of those shows along that period, where I hit him in the mouth. Oh God. And his tooth ran into between my knuckles, and it bled like a hog. And little did I know that was really dangerous as far as infection's concerned. Another human being's bite. And so then I had to take antibiotics and, get the doctor's got to look at it every time you go out there and all this other shit. So it's just one of those deals where it's like, what else is going to happen here? Can we just get out of this cluster and move on? And I think if you ask all 4 guys that were involved in it, they would tell you basically the same thing. We're just glad that we got through it based on who the talents that were in this match. And instead of it lasted 3 or 4 weeks, it probably should have lasted 2 weeks. You shoot the angle, you get a reason, you have the match, you get out of there. But it lasted longer than that because they liked what they saw leading into WrestleMania, and they love Cole's heel banter to good old JR.
Well, JR, unfortunately, or fortunately for you, at Over the Limit, you squirt Cole with barbecue sauce, and that's really the end of the Cole-Lawler feud.
I was going to tell you about the other squirting my face in my face.
Yeah.
We hadn't rehearsed that either. So he's supposed to squirt it over my shirt and my coat and all that, and not nail my $1,000 hat with barbecue sauce. So it ruined the hat, but they paid for it. And I got a new hat. And so I still got the hat that's got the stains, the barbecue stains on it. I had it cleaned and all that. They wouldn't come out. So someday on the memorabilia block,
there you go.
You'll know where that one came from. But anyway, I was just at the end of my rope. Well, let's get this son of a bitch over with. I mean, God almighty, we're flirting with disaster here. But he squirted me with that barbecue sauce, and it went in my eyes and over my hat. So now they got to get the doctor. I stumble to get back to the gorilla position, and the doctor runs over there, starts washing my eyes out because my eyes are loaded with barbecue sauce, burnt like hell, blurry, couldn't see shit, but it burnt like crazy. And, but that's another deal. It's not thought through. There's no way you could, you didn't rehearse it. Should you? I don't know.
Thank God it wasn't that Chipotle ketchup. That could have burned him right out of socket.
That's right. That's right. It wasn't in JR's barbecue sauce. It had my label on it.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh, sons of bitches. They could at least bought your barbecue sauce and try to give you some business.
For the hell of,
right.
Help a brother out,
Good Lord.
They could have gone to jrsbbq.com as easy as anybody else and got them a case. Would have taken care of you.
My goodness. They just went down to Barbecue R Us and just bought a cheap shit and used that, huh?
Yeah, probably.
That's not cool, man. Got to support JR. Well, you return to Raw to replace Michael Cole when Triple H is the new babyface COO before being fired by John Laurinaitis later on in October. This is to lead to a match between you and John Cena against Cole and Alberto Del Rio. Why do you keep having to go back into a wrestling ring against Michael Cole?
Because it works on the minute by minutes. That's why, Paul. There's no other reason. It's not Punk and Briscoe. It's not a remake of Steamboat and Flair. Come on.
Right.
It's the shits. It's cows on ice. That's what it is. And here's the other thing I found to be somewhat funny. Alberto, hell of a hand, was over like crazy in Mexico City. But he's coming down there he's supposed to be as a heel on TV.
Yeah.
But he's a baby face in Mexico City. So you got a baby face local star in Alberto. You got Cole, who's tagging along, just like tagging along with Cena. Cena gets that polarizing welcome anyway. Some people hated him, some people loved him. It was a damnedest menagerie of emotions and feelings that I've ever been around. And I think that the baby faces went over in that one, if I'm not mistaken. I think Cena and I, maybe Cena, I don't know how that worked. I can't remember. I don't think we lost, though.
Oh,
therefore, I'm undefeated in Mexico, the whole country.
We got a recap for you. Don't worry. We pulled the Observer just so I could read it to you. This is good stuff.
I'm so happy. Hey, remember, I'm undergoing cancer treatment here. I'm sensitive.
Right. I understand, JR. We'll take it light here. But you got to admit, though, it is kind of cool you got to tag with John Cena. I mean, that's kind of cool.
What was really cool was him going over the match with me beforehand. He was so patient and so giving and understanding, understood my limitations, understood my mental angst. I knew I was very uncomfortable in this role.
Yeah.
And so he really took me aside, and I remember sitting in a little dressing room, a small little room, and just went over things. And he was really great to me, and how he worked that out. So I always appreciate old John for that.
Cool.
I never understood maybe he was just overexposed. I don't know, but a better human being you never find in pro wrestling than John Cena. All those Make-A-Wish things he's done, that shit don't come easy, man. That plays on your heart, plays on your emotions, plays on your time. But he's the all-time king of that, and he should not. You can't get enough praise because there's nothing else because of that. But I think we won. Oh, you got to review.
Here we go. We're going to give the recap. So from the Observer, again, more Meltzer. Cena and Ross were backstage. Ross said he was almost 60 and a grandfather and doesn't want to be wrestling. Cena told him not to worry, that Del Rio has never beaten him and he'll work the match by himself. Ross then said that he would like to get Cole for a second. Cena said that Ross is the greatest announcer WWE has ever had. They script this into the show, but then have a hideous broadcast team, and he's not being used anymore as an announcer. Cena and Ross beat Del Rio and Cole in 11 minutes, 32 seconds. Ross was the babyface, went in with Cole. But Del Rio was the face, went in with Cena, to your point, Jim.
Yeah, it was weird.
Ross did one slap to Cole's face, and then Cena and Del Rio worked almost the entire match. Crowd was really hot for Del Rio, chanting Mexico, Mexico. Del Rio did a lot more than he usually does, probably because the crowd was so strong behind him. The crowd popped pretty good when Del Rio used a German suplex for a near fall. Cena ended up giving Cole the attitude adjustment. He then tagged Ross, who put on the ankle lock for the submission. Man, that sounds like a fun little deal that you had going on down there with Cena. And
yeah, the creative was kind of cool. Creative was kind of cool, but the dichotomy of the match, the personality of the match was strange because of what you said.
Yeah.
JR was a babyface on his team, and his opponent, Alberto, was a babyface on his team. It just was strange how it worked out. But the fans seemed to enjoy it okay because Del Rio and Cena gave him a lot of action, and the match only went 11 minutes.
Well, JR, Cole challenges you next to a Michael Cole challenge for your job. It happens November 14th, and you win 2 of the 3 challenges, which is arm wrestling and then a dance-off. But you lose the 3rd because Cole weighed less than you. Explain this to our audience. Did you have a legit issue with Cole, or is this all part of the work, as they say?
Part of the work, man. Part of the work. You know, we knew we were both booked in a box. Neither one of us liked it, but we did it because that was our job. And coach sends you in to run a play, you run the damn play. Simple as that. You don't change the play on the way from the sideline to the huddle. And so I think there's also a deal there where you wanted me to I was supposed to do like a rap or something. Somewhere along the way, I did a rap, but I forgot the lyrics. So
no, you forgot PN News. Remember PN News? Yo, baby, yo, baby, yo.
Yeah, of course I remember. I forgot. I forgot my lyrics. And there was, like you said, there was arm wrestling, the dance off. And then I remember going back to the curtain after that was over, and the dance especially got over the old man. He loved it. He finally gave it to me. Oh. You finally gave it to me. Well, I'm sure glad you got it.
Listen, JR, next ad-free show's Top Guy Weekend. Would you be willing, if we do Rebels karaoke, to get up there and shake your moneymaker again? A little dance-off. Could we get that, a little JR?
I'll just have to wait and see how I feel. Talk to my manager, my agent.
Yeah.
And
I think you swiveling your hips up there, maybe with Rebel and some others, that'd be a lot of fun for us to see.
Rebel, yeah, we could practice beforehand, too.
Little ad-free shows exclusive.
Oklahoma girl.
There you go. Oh, yeah. Boomer Sooner.
Love her, man.
Oh, she's good. We have a lot of fun on our happy hour here on ad-free. Little cheap plug for ad-free shows. There you go.
Yeah, why not?
Well, JR, you returned at WrestleMania 28 to call the end of an era match, and you shake hands with him on camera, effectively ending your on-screen feud with Michael Cole. Were you happy to put this in the past?
Yeah, and it's my idea to shake the hand.
Okay.
Because I wanted him to be resurrected to where if good old JR likes him, then I can like him.
That's
and
right.
all the stuff we went through, at the end of the day, there's a handshake. To me, it was good psychology. And it made him put a little bit glow back on him instead of being that little nerdy, guy that I started this angle by kicking him in the balls months and months earlier. So I thought it was the right thing to do. And I know he appreciated it. He really did, because he's working so hard to regain his credibility from that heel run, which did him no favors.
JR, from crotch shots to dance-offs to barbecue squirting, you did it all with Michael Cole.
Yeah.
But you also worked with Michael after Jerry Lawler had his heart attack on Raw. What was it like sitting next to him in a color commentary role?
Well, the role didn't bother me at all because I understood my role. And my role was to try to replace King as that color guy. It was bittersweet. It was great that I was able to get back on Raw, but under the circumstances, it was horrible. Because, I think, I can't remember exactly where we were medically, but I know when I did the first show with Cole, I think I did two or three, I can't remember, that we still weren't sure Jerry's condition was going to be long-term. So it was a bittersweet opportunity, to say the very least. Glad to have it, glad to do it, and I knew that when King was healthy, that he'd be right back sitting there and doing his thing. And I was perfectly fine with that. I understood the terms. I understood my role. I'm a part-time guy, and I'm filling in, and that was cool. I was okay with that, especially being Jerry and all that. So not an issue, but it was bittersweet because it's not, you don't want to be there. You don't want to get there to fall under the circumstances that brought me back to the table. And that's what happened.
Absolutely not. JR, what is your relationship like with Cole today? When's the last time maybe you talked to Michael?
I don't know that we've talked in the last several years. We have exchanged a text message here and there, holidays. Like I said, he's got a great family. And so the holidays, you will probably like sometime this month, I'm sure we'll exchange text messages. That's about the extent of it. You know, he's on the road a lot. He's got a lot of responsibilities. There's that little competitive nature that some people have with WWE and AEW. I don't think Cole's in that league. I don't think he cares. He's got all he can do to say grace over to keep us to do what he's doing. But I'd say we text each other maybe once or twice a year. And I wish it were more, but what are you gonna? It's just hard. It's just hard. It's like Mick and I were saying today. You know, it's been a long time since he and I sit down and had a talk. But that's wrestling. That's the wrestling business. And that's why it's so wonderful that I'm getting all these text messages and also stuff on social from some of the biggest stars in wrestling. You know, I think some people were surprised that Rock sent me a tweet. Well, you know, I wasn't. Did I appreciate it? You damn right I appreciate it. You know, he knows that. But he didn't owe me that. And he's busy as hell. He's one of the biggest stars in the entire world, taking a moment out of his day to tweet me. That's the wrestling business that I love. Mm. And I'm getting a lot of that from guys. You know, I got a lot of talent are really supportive of my situation right now and are in my corner. So I'm pretty lucky in that regard, Paul.
That's great. You told off air, you were mentioning that you hear from Austin quite a bit too now. Yeah.
Steve checks on me, you know, trying to see if I'm doing what I need to do to get healthy.
Sure.
Yeah, he's good. CM Punk's another guy that's always there.
That's great.
To check on me, and I appreciate that because Phil's got a lot on his mind as well. He's a very complex guy and very talented, as we all know. But guys like that, and then just a ton of guys. I mean,
sure.
It's just wonderful, quite frankly. And I'm always amazed at how many people reach out because it's very, very helpful. If you only knew when you're sitting in an empty place,
right,
and you're starting to wonder about letting your mind wander to a bad place, then you read your timeline, it takes you right out of it.
That's great.
Yeah, it sounds simplistic, but it's a fact.
If you're thinking about it and you're thinking about, man, should I send him a text or a tweet or something encouragement? Just do it. Because you never know what that person's going through in that moment. That's what I've learned in life. So
yeah, I agree. That's good. That's a good philosophy. Real good philosophy. So it's all good. And you know, my relationship. I would love for things to be different, and Michael and I be able to have conversations just about things in general, football, family, you know, holidays, food. There's a lot of things that we enjoy chatting about, but it's just the opportunity's not there, and we don't create that opportunity. But I wish, of all the things that are different with Cole and I just wish that we had the opportunity today to communicate more. And I'd like to let him know how much I respect what he's done and what he's doing. And he's become a hell of an announcer. He does a great job.
I think you've done that today through this podcast, and I want to get your reaction too and thoughts. I think you've heard recently that it's come out that he's lost part of his hearing, unfortunately.
I heard that. Yeah. Well, that doesn't surprise me from all the years of wearing the headsets and riding your levels, you know, and so that sound blares in your ear. I know when I am on headsets, mine are up a little louder than the average guy because it motivates me. I hear that real crisp, strong crowd noise, the ambience and all that stuff. I love it. It motivates me. It's good stuff. But you know, I hope that we did some good today in that regard. People got a little better understanding of Michael Cole. He's no different than us, folks. He's a wrestling fan.
That's right.
And he's had a real good job in wrestling for years and years. And he's earned every moment of it, every accolade, every promotion, every raise, all his exposure. He's earned all that. And so, again, he's Mr. Reliability. And I think he's just one of the more underrated guys, broadcasters that people are going to have. They're always going to talk about the predecessors. But before I went to Atlanta, after Soley had been turned out to pasture, and Shivani and David Crockett replaced Gordon, it was hard because Soley was the old comfortable pair of house shoes that people were used to slipping on every Saturday at 6:05 and watching wrestling. And everybody wanted Gordon back, and they missed Gordon. I think it's the same way with Cole and myself. When I was there, it was great. Everything was wonderful, it seemed like. And then all of a sudden, JR is gone, and Cole gets the blame. And it takes him a while to establish his audience. But he's done that now. I don't know his reception when he comes out or anything like that. I have no clue. But he's earned his keep, and he's earned it in a very classy way.
You said it perfectly, JR. You think about nobody wants to follow Vince Scully. Nobody wants to follow Jack Buck or Pat Summerall or, Al Michaels one day, right? Those are tough positions to follow in JR's footsteps. And in a lesser degree, when you think about podcasting, to step in for a Conrad Thompson, none of these things are the easiest things to do in the world. But there's guys that have, cemented themselves into our ears as game changers. And it's not a great place, it can always not be the most fun place to be. But Michael Cole has certainly lived up to expectation and exceeded expectation.
Without a doubt. Couldn't agree more. I'm glad we did this show. I hope that folks liked it. Saw a little insight about the inner workings and announcing and things of that nature, and how he and our relationship was established and built over years. We worked together a long time. He was always at TV. Even the TVs, if Lawler and I were still on Raw, he'd still be there working, doing an interview or doing something. So we saw each other, multiple days a week forever. And I tell people, this is the truth. I don't recall us ever having one argument. So, but I know that, just like if he had booked all that bullshit between he and I might have a different opinion. But he didn't. He was fulfilling his marching orders.
JR, before we get to the fan questions, and we have a couple this week, what is the biggest misconception, in your opinion, of Michael Cole?
Oh, man, I don't know. He's hard to say. I mean, golly, he's the biggest misconception. He's very underrated. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves, and he deserves more. Because he had a tough act to follow. He's in a very tough position. When he's not on the air, he's on the headsets producing Monday Night Raw talent. So I think underrated. He's a real good producer and a great organizer for his announcer team. And I don't think he's given the credit for that he deserves. So I say underrated, quite frankly.
Good stuff, JR. Let's get to the fan questions. We'll go rapid fire. So, again, just your first response, and we'll go through these and move through these for our folks here. Tonka Toy Roy says, what was the verdict on an outsider coming in? And I think this is speaking to Michael's lack of wrestling experience prior to coming in. Were people worried if he'd get it or not?
No, because he was a bright guy that wanted to learn, and there were plenty of people on campus, so shall we say, that were willing to help him. But he was a smart guy. He picked up on it real well. Look, Paul, it's not rocket science.
Right.
Come on. It's just common sense, logic, and checking your ego at the door. He had no problem with any of those issues.
Adam Arpin is up next, and he says, our buddy Ad Free Shows, Adam Arpin, a big fan of yours, JR. He says, did you feel Todd Pettengill would have progressed just as, if not further, than where Michael Cole was positioned had he stay, or does Michael have something that just sets him apart from the Pettengills, Coachmans, etc. in this business?
I don't think that as talented as Todd is, he didn't have the versatility that Cole did. He didn't have the same skill set. In other words, I don't know that Todd would have been good at doing play-by-play. Don't know that he'd be bad. It just doesn't seem like it's ever been his calling. So, but to compare those two is a loose comparison. Cole's got much more talent.
There we go.
And where I would have no issue having Todd Pettengill interview anybody or host a show or be a point person, when it comes down to the heavy lifting, which is doing the play-by-play, I want Cole sitting there instead of Pettengill.
Adam Leeson is up next. Well said, JR. Why does JR think Michael gets a bad rap from some fans? Is it because of who came before him? That's exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I think so. It's not fair, but it's the same deal. Hey, look, I followed Cowboy. And he got letters, who's this young guy? We want you back. So we've all been there. The solely illustration I gave you with David and Tony certainly was real. People didn't like the change. Wrestling fans don't like change all the time, especially in those roles of their voices that they hear.
That's right.
And they support. So,
hey, it's taken people a little bit of time to get used to Excalibur and what he's doing. So
yeah, well, he does a hell of a good job. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, and he's got a great feel for the game, and especially some MMA properties and some lucha libre things. He's very good, but I'm like you. He's still getting there. As far as the audience is concerned, he has. Right. I know he won the Observer Announcer of the Year, so a lot of people love his work, and they should. I told him, I said, "Well, you only got to win it 15 more times, and we'll be tied."
I love it.
But Excalibur's a good man.
Seems like you have a great relationship with him. So.
Oh yeah, he's smart.
Yeah.
And he makes us all look better, and I'm helping him as best I can. And he accepts my tutoring.
Talk about a mentor to have, Jim Ross. That's fantastic.
Well, I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah. Kurt Zamora is up next, and he said, how good would Michael Cole be if he was able to literally just do play-by-play instead of having to handle all the WWE shtick, like talking about what's trending, etc., throughout the commentary?
It'd do very well, because it lessens the things you have to focus on and to prioritize through your verbiage to get into the show. So he'd probably do a hell of a job. The thing about it, don't think he can't call hold by hold matters. He can, but he would. But that's not their style. It'll never be their style. The play-by-play, telling the story, is always going to fit somewhere in what you said about what's on Twitter, what's trending, and these things. That's just the way Vince wants it, where they're more of a mass appeal, scenario, and so the play-by-play will never be a major component in a WWE show. And that's not pissing on their cornflakes here. Just telling you this is not how they produce their shows. What Vince and Kevin Dunn want is what you're hearing. If you weren't hearing it, then they wouldn't be endorsing it. So that's where all that comes from. But no, I think Cole could do play-by-play in anybody's ball game.
Fernando Diaz says, Jim, any ribs on Michael Cole that you remember?
There was something about maybe that Heidenreich interview, or Heidenreich looked like he was going to molest him. That might have been taken just a little bit too far. It was kind of a stiff rib. But nothing really. Cole's smart. He stayed out of the bullshit.
Yeah.
Stayed away from the troublemakers and stayed away from all that stuff. And that was not his calling. He wasn't a guy that wanted to engage in that sort of behavior. He's got a great sense of humor, loves to laugh, but I don't think anybody wants to endorse, something negative. And I'm just trying to think if there's nothing. I can't think of anything really rib wise. Again, he stayed kind of away from that shit.
Yeah, you got him with some barbecue sauce. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
That's
well,
nothing major.
he got me first.
There you go. Well, we have up next, we have Astro Zombie, and he says, do you think one of the reasons Cole gets hate is because even though he's good at what he does, he comes across a bit bland compared to announcers of the past?
Maybe they don't like his personality because he is a little bit laid back and a little bit more, you don't want to say Michael Cole is like oatmeal with nothing on it. But if you don't put a little something on it, it can be kind of plain. But he's a nuts and bolts guy. And he's got a huge catalog of information that he's responsible for disseminating on that television show every Friday night. Mm. So that's their playbook. Well, it's like saying, well, we ought to throw the ball more. Yeah, but don't you know we run the wishbone? It's a running offense. Well, we still ought to throw the ball more. Well, it may not make any sense. It's what you want to see, type things. But Cole's I just think he's done a hell of a job. He's a Hall of Fame guy. Michael Cole is definitely a Hall of Fame guy. And I, for one, will be clapping big time when he gets inducted.
2 more questions, JR, and then we'll close it down. Icy Jet Wave says, how long did it take for Cole to be respected in WWE?
That came along pretty good. I think that's why he's had a nice meteoric journey from being a voiceover guy, then an interview guy, to where he is today. And I think that's he's always had great respect because he didn't go out of his way to get involved in the bullshit. He was very smart about taking care of his business and doing his job and not getting knee deep in the minutia of wrestling gossip and all these type things. It's just not his style. Me, on the other hand, but seriously, he's smart. He's smart in how I was a little bit, I alienated a lot of people because of my hard-headedness, shall we say. But he just doesn't have that personality. I'm a bull in a china closet, and he's not. Don't mean he's better or worse than JR. Just we're different. And but he got put behind the 8 ball, Paul, as we discussed earlier, with some of that booking.
Yeah.
They cut his legs out from under him. He had to rebuild it. But like I said, what I admire is he steered the course, he rebuilt that, and now he's sitting in a very good spot.
JoJo with our final question of the week. Did you help Michael Cole on commentary the night McFoley won his first title on Raw backstage?
Nope, I didn't. I wasn't there. I was sick. Bell's palsy. I was sitting at home in Norwalk. And I said many times, was there one match that you wish you could have called? And that's it. Mick Foley winning his first title. That'll put butts in seats. And which is kind of funny how that's worked out. One innocent line has now become the theme for a graphic novel.
Tony Schiavone selling a comic book on Saturday instead of watching the Georgia game. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, it's the he's got a personal interest in it. When he was
man, it's
producing Georgia games, it's a different ball game. But now he's got the personal interest in that graphic novel, Butts and Seats, which is he gave me a copy. I think it's just so well done.
Yeah.
If you haven't looked at it, folks, check it out because it's
Amazon.com. Yeah.
What's that?
You can find it on Amazon.com.
Amazon.com. Well, there you go. Has Conrad bought that yet?
Amazon, not yet. I'm surprised. I mean, probably 2022. That's one of his goals.
Yeah.
Speaking of what's up on the docket, next week, Conrad will be back, and you're going to be finishing your look back 20 years ago with Vengeance 2001. And that's you and I, when we talked to Chris Jericho 2001, that's when he becomes the undisputed champion. And that's the beginnings of the brand split, Ric Flair in the WWF, plus so much more. And my goodness, it is the season, JR, to talk about some stuff over at jrsbbq.com. There's some good stuff over there right now if you're looking to do some holiday shopping.
Yeah, we got some good packages, Paul. Thanks for bringing it up. Real good packages, box sets. Prices are very competitive. You save yourself a lot of money at jrsbbq.com. We're working literally around the clock. I know if I want to talk to Stephen Link at 2 in the morning, I know where he's going to be. We're working literally all the time. And the only thing I am remiss that maybe somebody's going to wait too late and they don't get it by Christmas or whatever their target date is. But we got all kinds of, Stephen's put together some great packages,
Yes.
Great savings. You know, food's a great gift to give somebody for the holidays. If you got a wrestling fan in your group and you don't know what to get them, it's a suggestion, a good suggestion, I think. So, you know, of course, the all-purpose seasonings are included in a lot of those packages. We got some new items. As I said many times, it costs nothing to go look at jrsbbq.com and know full well that we are grateful for your support and your business.
There's a few different gift box options, whether it's Jan's favorite gift box, Slobber Knocker gift box, the main event gift box. And JR, heard you say on the Zoom event show that was last week that if someone wants an item substituted, that your guy over there will take care of that too. Yeah. So it's just a phenomenal customer service as well.
We're very aware of that we have to be good, better than good on customer service. We're just a mom and pop company. So we do our best, quite frankly. And I wish I had better news. You know, we're not the Red Ass JR's hot sauce ain't dead. It's just a matter of, you know, you find yourself in a position where because of COVID, everything's blamed on COVID.
Yeah, the pandemic.
It's going to rain tomorrow. I said, COVID. Oh, God damn, COVID. We all know COVID's
yeah.
deal.
It affects the clouds now and the
rain.
It
affects everything. So getting supplies, ingredients, because we're not just going to put anything in there. And so we got it's good. So and I can't wait to get it on the market because I think people are going to love it. If you like hot sauce, then you got to try a bottle and then tell me what you think. So and of course we'll be letting everybody know when it's going to be available. But I swear to God, it's not going to be long.
Good. I'm looking forward to that. And speaking of value, we'll close with this one, adfreeshows.com. If you're not a member, now is the time to sign up. JR, you don't know this yet, but you're going to get another email from me in the next couple of days, and that's for us to schedule our December bonus show. And again, what you don't know is that me and you were going to sit back and watch an old UWF show once they were purchased from Crockett from 1987. And you and I are going to have fun watching that together and take some fan questions from ad-free shows. That's where you get all the bonus content. You also get these shows he mentioned, JR mentioned earlier on, early and ad-free. This show that is scheduled to drop on the 9th, this will probably drop tomorrow on the 7th as we recorded, 7th or 8th. So get it early, get it ad-free, get it on video where you can watch JR passionately talk about how he kicked somebody between the legs. I'm telling you, you can't miss it. The expressions, it's fantastic. There's a great value. Not only do you get all of JR and what he has to offer, but you also get Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, Tony Schiavone, Eric Bischoff. It's an unbelievable value, Jim Ross.
Conrad's assembling a hell of a roster. And from what I understand, he's not done adding.
He is not done.
So that's all cool. You got to continue to reinvent and stay hot, stay topical. But that's why I love this whole business. I mean, the competitive nature of doing a podcast and seeing it ranked. Are you number 1 this week? You're number 4 this week? You know, whatever it may be. See, I get off on that. I think that's cool as hell.
Hell yeah.
So you know, and we're
you should.
Competitive bunch, yeah.
That's just like Smackdown and Raw, you know, the A show and the B show, baby.
That's right. That's right. That's the mindset, whether it's accurate or not, or just ego oriented. But no, I'm having a blast, and we got Conrad and I talked about some other things, and so a lot of it depends on my health and where we're going to be and all that good stuff. But like I said, I don't consider any alternative to my current situation other than being healthy and cancer free. That's the only option I will consider.
They just, and to your point, JR, you know, things to come. They just announced a live show with Jeff Jarrett and Eric Bischoff that's going to be out in St. Louis in January, and that's the first of many shows I'm sure we'll see in 2022. As long as you're feeling well, I'm sure we could potentially see something like that for you. And if you're an Ad-Free Shows member, those are discounted tickets for events like that. So lots of reasons to get involved now. I
agree. Ad-Free Shows is, if Conrad had created adfreeshows.com when I was a pup, I'd have figured out a way to get that first $9 to get involved.
That's right.
Because it's just too good to be true. All the content that you get. And, you know, we haven't even mentioned the old WSB radio shows. Those drop on Fridays, and they're doing really well.
Gold. Audio gold.
They're hearing these interviews as they were live and unrehearsed and unproduced and all that good stuff. So it's a great entity right now. The podcast world is on fire, and Conrad's got the goods. He's got the horses.
JR, there are people that join just to hear those shows, and they comment that every time they're released. Like, I'm here for the WSB radio shows.
Oh, great.
So it's really cool. And I'm telling you, if you say $9 I can do, try the $9. And then as you get used to that, then maybe think about the next year.
Of course.
And the next year. So,
but point is that for $9, for as little as $9, you are able to sample and get a very good look or a good feel, a good listen to what you've been missing. $9. And last I looked, that's maybe, is that 2 Starbucks?
That's less than 2. You might get a cup and a half at Starbucks on $9.
So there you go.
Well, JR, this has been an absolute blast for me. I really enjoyed stopping in again with you today and talking all things Michael Cole. I think you cleared the air here. We weren't here to find animosity. We just wanted to hear your story of your friend and through the years with Michael Cole, and I think you did him well today, sir.
Hope so. Well, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
If folks are looking for negativity and poor me and poor him, he's a bastard, this, that, then I'm sorry I disappointed you. But I did tell you the truth. I told you everything that I know and how I feel about this guy. And I just think he's been misrepresented at times by some of the fan base. And that's unfortunate, especially for a guy that works that hard, that loves the business as much as he does, and has contributed over the years so much to the pro wrestling game, the sports entertainment game, more specifically for him. So I'm glad we got to do it. So it made me feel better.
Well, JR, on behalf of all wrestling fans and all fans of you, you will continue to be in our thoughts and prayers as you continue on in your treatments. And we hope that they continue to go smooth for you, man. We're thinking about you. We're in your corner. And like I said, it's been great to be here with you today. He's Jim Ross, the voice of wrestling. And I'm Paul Bromwell. It's been a pleasure to be here with you this week here on Grilling JR. We'll see you next time.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.